RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone, talking Vols as we do every Friday at 7:20 with Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson. I am Will Bowling, joined by our good friend Brent Hubbs of VolQuest.com. Brent, have you been able to thaw out up there in Knoxville? How are the roads looking for people making their way to Thompson Bowling Arena tomorrow?
Oh, they're going to be all right. Great, no, but they're going to be fine on the interstate, the side roads. They've done a good job on campus clearing things out. It's going to be above freezing here today. We had a little freezing rain last night, but it's going to get better throughout the day today here finally, and nothing's melting, but the roads have been treated and they're going to clear up. So I don't think anybody will have any real troubles getting into Thompson Bowling Arena for what should be a good matchup tomorrow afternoon between Tennessee and the Tide.
And it's just incredible that there are Alabama athletes who haven't transferred and will be in uniform tomorrow. I had to get that little dig in, Brent. I did see, though, the other day that Austin Price was not only in the building, it had a courtside picture at the Food City Center for Tennessee and Florida. So I guess Austin Price, is he like picking guys up in ATVs or something? Like what's his situation? How is he so high profile that he's in the building?
He's living his best life. I mean, they threw some rose petals at him when he walked in. I mean, he was courtside at the Grizzlies in December. He's courtside at Food City Center. He takes helicopter rides wherever he needs to go. I mean, he's living the best life. The rest of us are just, we're just doing whatever he tells us to do, basically.
That's right. Good way to be. Brent Hubbs, our guest this morning here on RKW. Brent, let's start with the local prospect here in 2025, five-star quarterback, George MacIntyre. Austin told us Tuesday, I think Josh Heupel's ready to send snowplows to Brentwood. That way BA can go back to school and George can maybe get into the building and make a commitment. What can you tell us about that timeline and perhaps getting an answer on that next week?
I think it's a matter of when they get back in school. Were they going to be in school Monday at Brentwood Academy or Tuesday? I think that when they get back in school and can get things situated and set up, then I think we'll get news from George. I think George is done. George is ready to announce his decision. He wants to do it in front of family and friends being guys at school that he wants to do around and be a part of. He just doesn't want to, just put out a social media post and be done, which I certainly don't blame him for that. There's some people he wants to thank and be around those guys and gals to show his appreciation for them. So as soon as Brentwood Academy gets in school, I think we'll get some news from George MacIntyre. And it's supposed to be 60 that way, I think, middle of the week. So surely by no later than middle of the week, we're going back to school.
Yeah, when you look at his situation also, man, if he, who are the two schools that he's down to, 2 or 3 schools that he's down to, as far as you know, Brent, just before I speculate and think he's all Vol or something like that, what are his schools? And if you've talked to him, what's his deciding factors on committing this early?
Well, I think his 2 biggest schools are Tennessee and Alabama. And obviously Alabama's gone through a change, but they brought in an offensive-minded coach and a coach who did some really good things with Michael Penix, at Washington, and they throw it around a lot. And so, there's some intrigue there, although he just doesn't have that kind of relationship with Caleb DeBoer. And LSU was the other school. They've already got their quarterback for the class of 25. And I think a big factor for George MacIntyre is about relationships, and it's about a comfort level. There's a lot of places he can go and be successful because he's a talented athlete with a huge upside and a real skill set. But I think at the end of the day, he's looking for a place that he's comfortable. He's got trust in the coaching staff, belief in the coaching staff, and it feels connected to those guys. And I think Josh Heupel, 6-7 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, really made George a priority in that class of 25. And I think George, feels that and understands that. And I think that's why Tennessee has been positioning themselves well and in the minds of a lot of people trending as a popular choice here the last 6 or 7 weeks, to be honest with you.
When you look at it, as you said a second ago, Brent Hubbs with us this morning, when you look at it a second ago, you said LSU already has their guy. I think he was the number 1 guy so far in this class, and I'm not mistaken, both him and George will be 5 stars. I think they're early right now with that. How does that affect a school? How does that affect recruiting? Have you seen trends of schools getting high caliber quarterbacks bring more talent to the team too. Is that why it's more important for those guys to understand if I commit to the school, then I can also help commit and bring other high prospects to the university I'm going to attend also?
Well, I think quarterbacks come off the board early for a couple of reasons. One is selfish, right? There's only one football and there's only one spot, right? Nobody's going to go somewhere where they're, 5 deep at quarterback or 4 deep at quarterback. I mean, they don't set. That's why there was a lot of high-profile quarterbacks in the transfer portal this offseason. I mean, you look at Brock Vandagriff from down in Georgia. I mean, he's not going to win the job there, right? They've got their guy. And so he's looking to play elsewhere, and that's why he went in the portal. So these guys are looking to kind of claim their spot early. That's why you see quarterbacks committing earlier than some other positions. And then they do have an effect in peer recruiting because, receivers are wanting to play somewhere where a guy can get them the ball, the guy that they believe in. And, all these guys know each other now through 7-on-7 tournaments and camps and all those types of things. But I don't know that peer recruiting has as much of an impact as it did 5-10 years ago because of the emergence of NIL. I think, instead of, a lot of people building dream classes like we've seen through the years, everybody's making a selfish decision. I mean, and they should, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's just one of those deals where, they're looking out for their best interest. And in some cases, for some guys, it's distance from home. For some guys, it's being around, other good players. Some guys, it's the coaching staff and the style of play. And for some guys, it's strictly, what does my NIL deal look like there compared to somewhere else? And, hey, if I can get a good deal for year one, if it don't work out, I can always go to portal. I go to portal twice a year if I want to. So there's a little bit more of that kind of decision-making going on in recruiting right now than we've seen in years past, obviously with the emergence of NIL.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest joining us this morning on RK-Dub. Pending the weather this weekend, like you had mentioned, Brent, obviously Junior Day taking place. What are and who are some of the guys that we could be looking out for, some of these younger names?
Well, I mean, you talk about, George is supposed to be here this weekend. David Sanders is a high-profile offensive tackle from over in Charlotte that is scheduled to be in this weekend as well. He is priority for Tennessee. He's priority for George MacIntyre. If I'm George MacIntyre, that's where I'm hanging out all weekend long because I want somebody protecting my blind side and my front side and everything else because I think David Sanders has a huge, huge ability as an offensive tackle, and he's a major priority. Somebody else George has been talking to, a lots of wide receiver by the name of Jamie French, who's a former Alabama commitment who backed off that commitment with Nick Saban's retirement, the new coaching staff coming in. Alabama's still in the picture there, but he's opened up to other schools. Tennessee's trying to get him at some point to town. I don't know that he's going to be here this weekend, but they're trying to get him into town as well. They've got a bunch of guys coming in terms of Junior Day visitors. It's a good-looking list. Now, who knows if they all get here, right? I mean, they're right. They may wake up and their mom and dad might say, it's too cold to get outside. We're not going. It's a Junior Day that these things are all over the place. I mean, there's a bunch of those guys that talk about coming that end up not coming, and we'll see, as to who gets there and who doesn't get here when it's all said and done. So we've listed a bunch of names in the war room, but we'll have to wait to see how many of those guys actually show up or don't show up. And again, this is not the perfect weather situation for what you're looking for a Junior Day, but hopefully they'll have a good number of guys in this weekend.
Yeah, and some of these assistants also taking time to go try to continue recruitment with some of the other top prospects in the country right now, including edge prospect Ari Watford. I know Tim Banks, you said in War Room, may be expected to be there in Virginia on Friday.
Yeah, they've been all over the country this week. Most of them got out of town before the weather got bad and have gone and recruited. They've been anywhere from St. Louis to the West Coast to up to New Jersey, I think, and D.C., Virginia, Florida, Georgia. I mean, it's one of those deals now where everybody goes out for the week, basically, and they beat the weather out of town, and they've been on the road recruiting all week long and taking full advantage of the opportunity to visit with some prospects in the class of 25 and 26. And you can now talk to those 25 prospects in school. It's not illegal like it used to be, where everybody just conveniently bumped into them in the coach's office. The NCAA said, look, we can't police that. Let's just let them meet with them. So it's not just going by and looking at a transcript at the high school. They're actually visiting with the kids at the high schools and spending some time with them. And obviously some of their stuff in the state of Tennessee got derailed this week because of weather that shut schools down. So they altered that, and most of their work has gone outside of the state of Tennessee this week.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest with us here at our RKW. Brent, it's amazing. We've spoken about it before, the talent in the state of Tennessee and how much that has grown over the years. And specifically when you look at the quarterback position, this time last year, we kind of started talking about George MacIntyre. It's weird thinking about 2026, but you got the number one quarterback in the country, according to On3, and Jared Curtis, who's down the road from us here at Nashville Christian as well. I know it's hard to say the Tennessee job has gotten easier from a recruiting standpoint, because Texas and Oklahoma joining the conference certainly does not make anything easier. But in terms of acquiring talent in your backyard, just how big of a difference do you see in the prospects available to Tennessee in state? Because I can never remember a time where you could go Marcel Reed, George MacIntyre, Jared Curtis, Kenny Minchie. I mean, so many of these QBs in state. Brock Glenn, who's starting for FSU in the ACC championship. I know I'm long-winded in asking this, but you could go on, Brent, with some of these quarterbacks, and it's still just kind of mind-blowing to me.
Well, the quarterback thing is the one that's just crazy, kind of what's popped up there. Because, you think about in the state of Tennessee from a quarterback standpoint, I mean, you're talking B.J. Coleman from Chattanooga years ago. There's just not been a ton of quarterbacks who have come through. There's been some athletes who played quarterback. I mean, Cedric Wilson was a quarterback, but I mean, nobody believed he was going to be a quarterback in college. Same thing with Jawan Jennings. There were some athletes who played quarterback, but in terms of guys being true quarterbacks, I mean, you got to go B.J. Coleman. You got to think Chad Pennington. There was a kid at Upper East Tennessee that ended up at Wisconsin, played a little bit, but there hasn't been nearly what we're seeing now at the quarterback position. So that's certainly different. In terms of talent overall, it's a little bit of a catch-22. One, there's a ton more talent, but the talent does not have oftentimes does not have huge ties to Tennessee because they're a transplant family. Business brought them to town. They didn't grow up necessarily, with generations of Vol fans in their families like you would have had 20 years ago. But there's more talent to recruit from. The other result of that talent and the base of talent in the state of Tennessee and the accessibility to the state of Tennessee is schools from around the country are recruiting Tennessee. Whereas years ago, I mean, you might have to deal with Alabama coming across straight lines and, Kentucky might come down. Now Oregon's flying into Nashville to spend 2 days recruiting, right? I mean, SC's coming in. All those things are coming in. And then when you surround the footprint of Tennessee, Georgia's better. Alabama's been on a run. So in some ways, recruiting in Tennessee is easier because there's more options in the state of Tennessee. And in other ways, it's harder because it's more competitive in the state of Tennessee for those kids' signatures than it's ever been.
Brent, the other side of that, man, is business is booming too. Now, a lot of that, now, if you could speak on the fans' participation in this too, because UT released their revenue from the last fiscal year last year, and it was over $200 million for the university. I know we get toxic as heck on social media and other fan bases hate us, man, but how big of an accomplishment is that for all of Vol Nation, not just the university, but the fans that support in Tennessee, out of state, and everywhere else? That's not a small number.
No, and life's good when you're winning, right? And you look at where Tennessee's been. I mean, they sent 2 teams to the College World Series last year in baseball and softball. They went to the Sweet 16 in both sports and basketball. They went to a New Year's Six in football. Swimming had a great year. Tennis, golf made a run. I mean, you can go on and on. That's why they won the All-Sports Trophy. And, I think that Tennessee has done a really good job of marketing themselves as an everything school. I think you go back to President Randy Boyd and Chancellor Plowman and what they're doing to attract in-state kids to come to the state institution. whereas previous administrations said they didn't want Tennessee to get bigger. They wanted it to be smaller. They were happy that they weren't the biggest school in the state when MTSU passed them years ago. That's not the belief of this current administration. They want the state institution to grow. So it's gotten some more options. I won't say easier, but they are focusing more on in-state kids and making sure that they have an opportunity to go. What does that do? That drives up the opportunity for donations, and that helps you in the state with various funding and different things like that. Then you look at something as simplistic, and fans didn't like it, but I heard this from a bunch of people at Tennessee in this administration when they first got here. They were blown away and dumbfounded by the fact that if you made a donation for football season tickets, you had an option to buy basketball season tickets without making a basketball donation. Well, they've changed that. They've separated those. If you want a basketball season ticket, you've got to make a donation now. That's a difference of about $13 million a year into the budget. And so that helps you get to that number. Danny White wanted to be at $200 million in revenue and in his budget by 26 and 27. He's obviously, gotten there faster, and it's because of the success that you have had on the field and you've had on the court of play. And Tennessee has continued to have a good year so far this year. And we'll see what that looks like as the rest of the spring goes. But I think there's a lot of excitement about where they are baseball and softball-wise, golf, and everything else this spring.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest, our guest every Friday here on RKW at Brent_Hubbs, where you can find the best info covering Tennessee on the market. Brent, we appreciate the time, and just know that if you ever need to cheer up or make Ramon Foster smile or happy at all, just shoot him a text that another Alabama player has entered the transfer portal as one who's the number one quarterback, according to On3 just did for 2024 and Julian Sayin.
I'm telling you, here's an interesting thing, and I know you guys are up against it. We got to go. But here's one of the interesting things I think schools have to look at moving forward. How much better would Alabama's situation have been if Nick Saban had waited until February 1 to announce his retirement? Because all these guys going in the portal would not have had a chance to go somewhere for the spring semester. They would have been stuck because school would have been had started already. I think with the portal, that's something people are going to look at moving forward with their calendar. And I think schools are also going to look at promoting within to try to preserve their roster, which Washington elected not to do, and that's why they've got 24 guys in the portal right now as well.
It's crazy. Yeah. Maybe Coach K was right all along. Do the retirement tour and, and get all the framed pictures and basketballs and footballs and go on your merry way. Great stuff as always with Brent Hubbs of VolQuest. Brent, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.